Spinoza is the real bad boy of philosophy. Compared with Spinoza, people like Nietzsche are they're pussies. Spinoza did not shy away from the most dramatic, most disturbing of considerations. So, for example, for Spinoza, there is no good and evil, except in as far as it refers to a particular thing. So, what is good for you? Well, what is good for you is whatever promotes your existence. What is evil for you is whatever destroys or diminishes your existence. And that is it. There is no external agent. There is no external set of rules or moral code that determines what is good or bad for you. As far as Spinoza is concerned, virtue, as he talks about it, is power. The more power you have to sustain your existence, the more virtue you have, as far as Spinoza is concerned. However, I would say that Spinoza's notion of virtue changes according to which part of his works you read about it. At the most basic level, it is the ability to persist in your existence as a physical entity. However, as you read in various parts of Spinoza, you will find that virtue is the power of understanding. And in fact, in one part of the Ethics, part 4, he says that a man of reason, which he considers to be a high manifestation of human behavior, a man of reason would not tell a lie, even if it was to save his life. So it depends on what kind of human being you're talking about. The purely animal human being, yes, of course, wants to maintain its existence. But to get back to the main point, there's no good or evil. Only what you consider to be affirming for you and what you consider to be negating for you. Those things are good and evil, respectively. There's no justice or injustice. The universe is just as it is. The universe has laws, but those laws do not inhibit what we would consider to be the most horrendous behaviors. So the universe has laws that say will not allow you to walk through a wall. None of us can do that. Might be some delusional spiritual types who think they can do it, but I think most of us are sane enough to realize that we cannot walk through walls. But Stalin could slaughter 20 million people. This was totally legitimate. The universe allowed it. There are no laws in the universe that inhibit that kind of thing. And so, as far as Spinoza is concerned, that thing is totally legitimate. And on this whole topic of good and evil, the only differentiator that Spinoza puts on whether a man is good or evil is basically whether he's conscious of his existence or not. The good man knows that he's a puppet and is conscious of that. Because he's conscious of it, he's fairly happy with it, because he knows that that's the nature of the universe, that's how it works. We are all, at the end of the day, I was going to use the word victims, but we are all driven by cause and effect, and we're very good at seeing the effects, i.e. I've just cooked myself a meal. So I have free will, that is what I've decided to do. But actually you go back and you think, well, actually yes, I was hungry, so that's why I cooked it. And I picked those things because they happen to be in the fridge, and so on and so forth. This chain of cause and effect. The evil man has no awareness, no consciousness, basically just like an animal, lives like an animal. He exists, but he doesn't know that he exists. And so he's not conscious of his existence. Spinoza challenges our notion of self in part 2 of the Ethics. He effectively says that what we consider to be our self really doesn't exist. He calls them general notions. So we might have a general notion that we can understand. We might have a general notion that we have desires, or that we can love. As far as Spinoza is concerned, these are just illusions by our need to create some kind of consistent story about our own mental existence. This is totally in accordance with the work of U.G. Krishnamurti, who says that man in his normal state really has no mind. He just has a collection of ideas, and he either affirms these ideas or he negates them. It's down to particular ideas. There is no organizing entity within the mind that understands or loves or hates. These things just happen. There is no order in the universe as far as Spinoza is concerned. Spinoza says that man's notion of order is just pure imagination. And in the world of physics, for example, and I studied physics at quite a high level, physicists will say that the universe obeys the law of physics. Well, it's utter and total nonsense. In fact, it betrays their arrogance and stupidity, because of course the laws of physics obey the universe. I think the universe was there first before man dreamed up his various laws. And what we always find is that what we think is certain becomes undermined at some point in time. So Newton's laws of gravity became undermined to some extent by Einstein's views of gravity. There is no order in the universe. The universe just happens as it happens. It doesn't have to conform to man's ideas of what it is. Another one. There is no beauty and there is no ugliness. Look at a field, a pasture of flowers and swaying grasses in the wind, and we say that's beautiful. Look at the rotting carcass of some dead animal infested with maggots, and we consider that to be ugly. The universe has no notion of beauty and ugliness. It's purely relevant to our own perceptions. Beautiful pasture with flowers and grasses blowing in the wind just confirms our life energy. A rotting carcass full of maggots reminds us of death and diminishes us when we look at it. That's if we are in a state of being driven by those things. There's no free will. We are puppets of cause and effect, like everything else in the universe. Why would man think that he is more, or why would man single himself out to be different from a tree blowing in the wind, i.e. the wind causing the tree to sway? Or why would he think he's different to a car going round a corner too fast and tippling over? Man is subject to the same cause and effects that everything else is subject to. And because of this, because there's no free will, there's no blame. Imagine that. The Buddhists constantly say, no blame, no blame. And how can there be blame if we are just puppets reacting to cause and effect? Of course, it also means there's no praise. If we achieve something extraordinary, it's just because the situations, the chain of cause and effects caused that to happen. Of course, there's no bad behavior and there's no good behavior. I could go on. The things that many of the philosophers claimed as unique after Spinoza were in fact just really embellishments on what he was talking about. Schopenhauer, for example, with his will to live. This is exactly the same as Spinoza's desire. Spinoza says desire is the very essence of man, and actually the very essence of everything. This desire for existence. It's the cause of virtually all our suffering, as Schopenhauer goes at great lengths to explain. And Spinoza himself says, by the term desire, then, I mean here all man's endeavours, impulses, appetites and volitions, which vary according to each man's disposition, and are therefore not seldom opposed one to another, according as man is drawn in different directions, and knows not where to turn. Desires push and pull us around, and the whole essence of the ethics is to effectively move towards a state of being desireless. He talks about blessedness, and he doesn't say a lot about blessedness, but he does say that it is essentially similar to contentment. And I've mentioned in other videos that contentment is a very underrated notion. Contentment comes about when you have no desires. By definition, you cannot be content if you have desires, or if you are identified with your desires. It might be more appropriate to put it that way. Because of course, even if you're content, you want to eat because you're hungry, or you want to drink because you're thirsty, or you want to sleep because you're tired. But whether you are identified with those things, or whether you are more an observer of those things, will determine how content you are. So blessedness is a state that Spinoza sees as the ideal state for man. So he's not saying anything that isn't said in some of the religions and spiritual traditions, but he goes beyond most of them by talking about a universe that is as it is, and if we are ever to achieve any kind of contentment or peace, we have to come to terms with that. And that means destroying a lot of what Gurdjieff called our most dearly held beliefs, because the universe is not what we think it is. And all our quieting notions that we acquired when we were children, or through watching Hollywood movies, are just fictions. And if we believe those things, then we will have pain, because we will have expectations that the universe will behave in a way that is different to the way that it actually does behave. Anyway, if you want to severely disturb your equanimity, your tranquility, then I suggest you read Spinoza.